Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Ita kahapati asutavato putojjano Ariyanang adassavi ariya dhammi akovido ariya dhammi avinito Sappurisanang adassavi sappurisa dhammi avinito sappurisa akovido Vedanang attato samanupassati vedanavantang va attanang attani va vedanang vedanaya va attanang ahang vedanang mamang vedananti pattita hoti. My friends, today is our third day in the retreat, and accordingly the third Dhamma talk. As we agreed upon the day, we have selected one particular common topic, and upon which we are going to have a series of Dhamma talks along this retreat. The particular sutta is known as Nakulapitu Sutta. Among the three baskets of the teaching of the Buddha, it appears in the Sutta Pitaka and particularly on Samyutta Nikaya, Vedana Kanda Samyutta. That is the very first sutta. As the very first 2 days presented, there had been a incident for this discourse to manifest, come up to being. The incident was that a famous devoted householder known as Nakulapita paid a visit to the Buddha at his old age, and then he explained the Buddha the difficulties and the pains and the symptoms of the old age, and he says even though he is so bothered and if he wished, but he can't often come like early days because of the ailments. And then the Buddha says that is true, that is the nature. More and more you get older, the body appear very fragile and problematic, and therefore the Buddha says, knowing that, you must know the art. Even though the body is inflicted, you must know the art of keeping the mind uninflicted. And that was a good advice, and keeping that in his heart, he pay respect and then pay a visit to Venerable Sariputta and explain what happened, and then he say what the Buddha's advice. And then Venerable Sariputta asked, did you question the Buddha further as to the ways and means to keep the mind free of ailment, even though you have bodily ailment? Then he says, I am sorry, no, it did not, but I please, why don't you teach me, and why don't you give me some detail as to effect question. Then only Venerable Sariputta take time, and he explained with respect to 5 aggregates. As far as the materiality is concerned, or corporeality is concerned, in Rupa, in Pali, how one can keep the mind uninflicted, or in the sense keep the mind out of sorrow, lamentation and pain and despair, even though the physical body is undergoing some ailments and the difficulties. So, having that, today we are going to shift into the mental part or non-materialistic part, starting from the feelings. To give a introduction or addressing to the feelings, there Venerable Sariputta says, the uninstructed commoner, those who have, he who has not seen noble people and not trained according to noble lineage and have no any experience on it, or he has not seen spiritual people and he has not trained according to the spirituality or meditation and he has no any experience, under such circumstances, he regards, just like the materiality, feeling as selves. It's a one way of misconception or a wrong view. He considers that my body is not myself, but feelings are feelings as self, or self as possessing feelings. As far as I have a self, it possesses all the feelings, and therefore there's a relationship between the feelings and the self. And feeling as in self, or it says, these feelings are taking the self as the ground, and it is living in self, or self as in feelings, or otherwise it can say self is taking the anchorage of the feeling. And being so, he takes, he becomes obsessed, telling that this feeling is me or feeling is mine. So with that kind of a misunderstanding, he tried to keep up with pleasure-seeking game. Always try to maximize the pleasure, because that is, such a people take this as their prime task, live to entertain more and more happiness. But even though such people consider some permanent, lasting happiness and try to understand oneself, I am such a rich person, I have this happiness, that happiness, kind of thing, this happiness itself undergoing some changes and subject to impermanence. Whenever such happiness tend to undergo impermanence or transient nature, that particular person will be subjected to sorrow and lamentation, or pain, or displeasure, or despair. That is because his recognition, his assumption that the feeling as self, or self is possessing feeling, or self is in feeling, or feeling is in self. That is why he takes as the feeling as me and feeling as mine. So this kind of misunderstanding or wrong views is not a crime. It is not an accusable mistake of oneself, because no one is escaped from this kind of misunderstanding. But how to deal with, unless otherwise you take this meditative life or contemplative life or mindfulness or diligent approach to it, otherwise there is no chance you to see its manifestations of this wrong view or wrong acceptance. So when we are in a meditation, definitely we have to confront with feelings, not only in the pleasurable way, sometimes in the unpleasurable way, sometimes without pain and pleasure. So therefore, those who are practicing have more understanding or more vivid picture regarding feeling. Generally, from the view of the society at large, the meditative path is to get rid of pain and reaching to the Nibbana, and the final aim, that is considered as a bliss and considered as a pleasurable state. So therefore, non-meditators think meditators are in a hell of a bliss, in a hell of a pleasure. But that is an irony. When you talk with, when you are going to take the task of meditation, you will come to know meditators are really sufferers. They are suffering more than the commoners, those who are not taken up meditation. So therefore, the unsuccessful meditators, those who are becoming backward and take a step back due to the pain, they will say, I thought meditation is to get rid of some pain, but in the meditation we are really developing pain. That is why I became a non-meditator, because more and more you go deep into the meditation, you have to cope up with deep layers of sufferings. It's a truth. Because not like any other religion, the Buddha, when he is presenting his teaching, in terms of Four Noble Truths, first and foremost truth is truth of suffering. So therefore, one of the Americans, when he is writing about this meditation, he says the Buddhist culture never entertains psychopaths. Because psychopaths are people going to the places where they have a happy life, they have holiday camps, they have pleasure. Sometimes they may go to the temples, but never they go to the meditation centers. Because the psychopaths have no attraction in the meditation center, because it is talking about pain. And more you practice, you confront with the pain. So therefore, luckily, meditation centers are fairly free of psychopaths compared with the other places where you have the music, drama, and all the kind of thing, bhajan and kind of thing. It's a very attractive places for psychopaths. So these are just common facts to understand. And if you are seriously going into the subject of feeling, once you mastered or become familiarized with the materiality or the corporeality or the body or what you call rupa, that means you know how to keep your body for a longer time, you know how to keep the primary object face to face with a long time, and you know how to confront with the gross type of primary object, the medium type of primary object, and the very subtle layers of primary object. That means you are slowly mastering the materiality, or in Satipatthana it is called Kayanupassana. So once the Kayanupassana has been mastered, he or she can understand the gross body or gross breath body. And then with continuous mindfulness, with continuous diligence, go through the subtle part of the breath body, and ultimately with so much of balance, so much of equilibrium, one can reach very subtle layers of materiality. That means breath body. We'll say successfully, if one can go to the very subtle layers or breath which is sometimes unperceivable, it's a kind of, even though it is intermediate, kind of an equilibrium. When someone go up to that level and without questioning, without entertaining doubts, without falling into sleep, without force breathing, or without losing the track, if one can maintain that, there are some kind of acid tests, and they are becoming very critical, such as that since the materiality is little off, he or she can understand the impingements coming from the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, appear like little free off, so can feel the inner space. When that happens, it's quite the abnormal kind of situation, because earlier whenever the sound happens, you get irritated and distracted, and then a reaction happens. Now you can be in the middle, the sounds are there, but unmoved. And there are some bodily pains, bearable, and don't take much of a interest, still maintain that the space. And there are some thoughts also, but even then, that particular person knows, main thing is not to worry. Let the thoughts to go away, I am not worrying about, and still I can maintain the balance in this equilibrium position. And when that kind of mastery happens, some people overestimate it, thinking this is a permanent state. So that means my mind will never now onward inflicted with this desire or hatred or sleepiness, and this will be a permanent bliss life. Sometimes that you tend to overestimate it. And when that happens sometimes, since there are no external impingements, your mind in the healthy way can go backward, and you may vividly remember some of your past events, and as if it is happening under your very nose. Sometimes you can project future, and you can predict what is going to happen in a very realistic way. And sometimes you can meet and telepathic connection with your dear and near ones. And sometimes you feel light and the light perception, lightness and light perception. And likewise, there are a lot of things going to happen if you can really maintain the equilibrium. So if you are going to recognize these things as your extraordinary achievement, or if you are going to call them as me or mine, and you will be really get entangled with unwanted problems. So there you must have learn, you have to learn the art. These are the condition of temporarily freed mind from the senses, from the sense impingements. So therefore mind is now relaxed. So there are a lot of good things can happen. And when that kind of situation happen, if you are well instructed, if you are not carried away, if you are not taken for a ride, then still you can understand these are temporary situations happening due to the cause and effect. And now mindfulness and the concentration is intact. That is why mind is undergoing this kind of a situation. And with the balancing, if you can continue 1 hour or so, completely in this inner space, ask. Because the mind is quite sometimes doubting, entertain doubts. Am I in the correct path? Or have I lost my mindfulness? Or have I lost my concentration? It's happening. All the kind of thing happen. So, knowing that if you are mature enough to give the time aspect to get the maturity on this equilibrium, then only your mind becoming ready to feel or to go into the sphere of feelings. Because now no friction from the materiality, mind is rather associating space. If I am to reiterate the same sentence, as far as mind is associating with the 4 elements, you feel the friction. Because there is a matter. This matter is subjected to heat and cold, expansion and contraction, forward movements, backward movements, vibrations and all the kind of things. So that means it is vivid, it is subject to friction, subject to gravity. But more and more you become subtle and go to escape from this matter, you go to the space and there is no movements. There is no gravity. You are floating like gravityless area. So when that happens, the different sphere of feelings tend to start. And if someone is really monitoring it, that kind of thing, just like an astronaut go to space and experiencing the gravityless situation, your mind also for the first time going to experience it. When that happens, there are some kinds of positive, constructive, and sometimes wholesome kind of feelings are going to happen. So overwhelming. There are 10 that kind of things have been recognized in the commentarial age, and they say Obhasa, Jnana, Piti, Passadi, Sukha, Upathana, such as some kind of a lightness or brightness in the mind, Obhasa, and special kind of a knowledge as to now my mind is not in a frictional way, it is in an area, it's a non-frictional, and as far as mind is with the immaterial sphere, you can't see boundaries. So you can't feel the in and out. As far as you have the matter, materiality, the body, you can say this is my body and this is beyond, this is with and without. But when, as far as you are associating this immateriality or very subtlest part of the matter or space, the in and out boundaries going. So therefore the boundless mind you can experience. And it is also a cause for you to entertain light and some gladness, rapture and pleasure, and sometimes serenity. And when that happens, if you are skillful to not to distract it, not to disturb it, not to overestimate it, you will feel a higher grade of mindfulness coming to be. Earlier your mindfulness is associated with the in-breath, out-breath, noting, understanding the in-breath versus out-breath, so it has a lot of work. There's nothing there. But you know, you came up to this point in a skillful manner and due to good instructions, and now even though there are no signs to follow, mindfulness is in that. That mindfulness we can say in the higher grade. And there are the kind of energy come into being, it is really synchronizing with the necessity, the supply and demand, and energy is not too high or too low. Whenever the energy comes into the proper balance, you feel as if a good driver is taking the vehicle, when he is changing the gears, the passengers can't feel. Even the road is rugged, they drive in such a way that the passengers won't suffer, and suspension is working very nicely. So therefore, the trip, the smoothness is there. So likewise, the energy aspect also come into being. And you get the clarity in future also, when such a thing happens, that is what I have to do. So he can foresee, he can predict for a few minutes at least, I will not disturb this situation. I know how to maintain this life. It's a kind of a resolute kind of faith going to arise. So all these things have a disadvantage as to your tendency may be this light or brightness when it happens, you tend to recognize it. It is my light or it is my brightness, so I must be happy. It is my gladness, it is my rapture, it is my pleasure, it is my serenity. So everything has this kind of a connection, and if you are to see that, that is the highest understanding of the feelings. So you are being amused and put into acid test by giving good qualities. Even then, if you are not to recognize with them, not to assume them as me, or not to react with them, is a task. I would say it is a task. Then only you can be qualified to go further. So same thing, you can learn from the Tipitaka or the teaching of the Buddha, specifically in the Sutta Pitaka. I would like to quote, under this context, the Chullavedalla Sutta, still the Sutta Pitaka in the Majjhima Nikaya, and there's a very nice narration, or the background is there. They had been a very well-to-do couple without children. They have enough properties, and the husband is free to leave the house, and often he goes to the Buddha and listen to Dhamma, and day by day he starts to realize the truth as to entering into the first Maggapala Jnana, that is stream enterer, and the second day he regularized his practice, and then he went to the second Jnana, second Maggapala, and one day he reached the third also. And then onward, when he come back home, his wife was so happy to welcome after the Dhamma talk, but he feel not to hug, not to kiss. And then he behaved in such a way, asking the wife not to touch him. And then wife was a little skeptic. Why that all of a sudden that refusing me? But she thought, never mind, serve the dinner. And after the overnight sleeping, next day in the morning breakfast, after serving, she asked, what is wrong with you? What I have done wrong to you? You are not like earlier. You have a kind of a special kind of a distance from me. Then he was a little hesitant to share with her, but they had a very nice misunderstanding each other. So he says, I never explained to you, you are being a housewife, you are engaged in the house, so I used to go to the Buddha and listen. And day by day there was some understanding. So therefore yesterday I had this extraordinary thing, then onward I don't feel any kind of sensuous pleasure. So therefore I thought of keeping myself solitude, and there's nothing wrong with you. Still the wife is not happy. And she says, if it is okay, but I feel that I have done something wrong to you, or maybe there you have an interest for another woman, that may be the reason you are working like me. Then he told, no, please understand, I have no such. Then later he told, if you don't mind, I would like to renunciate and become a monk. And she told, I have no objection. Only the problem and only the question is, can I also renunciate and go to a nunnery and be a nun? Then he told, my real serious decision, I doubt you can take that kind of a hard task. Because I am now with certain amount of understanding, and therefore I have made up your mind. But you are just a housewife, no much of understanding of Dhamma, and a lot of hardships there in the meditation. She says, never mind. But if you give the permission, we both can renunciate. Then they discuss each other and what to do with the property. They told that we will give a donation, ask anyone to come and take. But still the husband, though he is highly attained, have a doubt whether the wife can take up this monastic life. And the wife also really a wise woman. And what she did was, after renunciation, she went a far away place without getting a chance to be at home atmosphere and meeting the ex-husband, and quickly she became fully arahant. And after that she came back to the Jetanarama to pay respect to the Buddha, and the ex-husband came to know, wife has come back to the Buddha. He underestimated. In the Indian society, even in Sri Lanka, always female have been underestimated. They think they are foolish, they know, their knowledge is very short. So they know that she would have been a failure and come back to the Buddha. So therefore the ex-husband go and question her as to see whether she has really got the Dhamma. And this is the dialogue which is related to our feeling story. And that husband name, ex-husband now is a monk, known as Visakha. The wife was Dhammadinna, and Visakha visiting Dhammadinna and have a courteous talk and then ask, dear the noble sister, what is the pain and pleasure of the pleasurable feeling? See, it is a kind of a question. No commoner can't even raise this question. And it appears like quite irrational. What is the pain and pleasure of the pleasurable feeling? And the Dhammadinna was very lucidly, she says, oh sister, brother, noble brother, when the pleasurable feeling comes in, it is pleasurable. When it is going off, it's a pain. But this whole situation happened under the underlying tendency of desire. Desire to the pleasurable feeling. You see, each and every pleasure or pleasurable feeling, as it comes in, we have a general desire for the pleasurable feeling, and it is called undercurrent or underlying tendency of desire. But we fail to notice when the pleasure is going, it leaves behind kind of a grief, kind of a pain. We don't notice it. Anyway, the Visakha is asking the second question. Dear sister or noble sister, what is the pain and pleasure of the painful feeling? I am very, in an aptly manner, the Dhammadinna says, oh sister, brother, when the painful feeling coming, it is painful. When the painful feeling is leaving, it's a pleasure. But the underlying tendency is the hatred. Your general hatred to the painful feeling. So, if you analyze pleasurable feeling, oncoming the pleasure, going out the pain. And the painful feeling, oncoming the pleasure, pain, and when it's leaving the pleasure. So, you add together and divide by 2, exactly the same. But the underlying tendency is completely opposite. You accept the painful feeling as a negative and hateful manner, and pleasurable feeling in the welcoming and desirable manner. Therefore, your mind is bewildered. You never see the pain in the pleasurable feeling and the pleasure in the painful feeling. And then comes the most brilliant question as the answer. Then the Visakha is asking, oh dear noble sister, what is the pain and pleasure of the neutral feeling? Or no pain, no pleasure feeling. In the Visakha, the Dhammadinna says, whenever you know neutral feeling, it is a pleasure. If you do not know the neutral feeling is a pain, the underlying tendency is the ignorance. This is middle part. This is the secret. This is the thing we have to understand in meditation. In our hedonic calculations and the rationality, we always seeking the pleasure. Whenever it happens, we get bewildered and blinded due to the underlying tendency of desire. So we fail to see each and every pleasurable feeling leaving behind some kind of a pain. And in the painful feeling, if you have to observe the beginning, the middle and the end of the painful feeling, the end of the painful feeling is a pleasure. But we are not patient enough or observant enough to see the beginning and the middle and the end of the painful feeling, basically because we have a natural tendency of hatred towards the painful feeling. So when we are practicing meditation, in the early 20 minutes after a good walking session, you feel like comfortable in sitting session. And if you can manage to observe the primary object in a very immediate way or in a very diligent way, sometimes within these 20 minutes, the mindfulness and the concentration come in contact with, and ultimately you can go into the deep layer of concentration. You won't feel the body, but that is not the case in each and every sitting. After 20 minutes, the pain sets in. Whenever the pain happens, we hate it. We react to it. And we are not prepared to see the beginning, the middle and the end of the painful feeling. We come to know the painful feeling when it comes up to the middle, and definitely it is with the hateful, undermining tendency, anusaya. So therefore, we are not patient to see the passing away part of the painful feeling. Therefore, we are losing a lot because of our premeditated idea, our stereotype approach, our hedonic calculation or rationalization. So the day you understand each pain as well as the pleasure have the same two halves, only the presentation is different. Painful feeling, when it's coming, pain, and when it's going, it is pain. Pleasurable feeling. Painful feeling, when it is coming, it is pain, but when it's leaving, it's pleasure. So if someone is patient enough to see the beginning, the middle and the end of pain and the pleasure, ultimately come to know, unless otherwise it's a face value or our attitude, the net result is the same. It's discovery. You have to do it, and when and where the pain happens or pleasure happens, instead of recognizing it with undermining tendency of desire or hatred, if you advise your mind or if you make a determination, go prepared just to see the beginning, the middle and the end of pain or pleasure, that you become a good meditator. And even then, the Buddha makes the task still easier. He says, only you have to do is, you have to understand when you are coming into contact with the pain, for example, you have to understand this is the middle of the pain. You have already negligent to see the beginning of the pain. So therefore, it is natural for your mind to react. So therefore, if the pain is going to happen again and again and again, you are lucky in the next moment or with the next dose of the pain, you must be ready the beginning part of the pain. And the asserting part of the pain. That means you have to observe the pain without prejudgment, without reaction, without assuming this pain is me, this pain is mine, this pain is myself. So when my teacher explaining it, he says only one technique available. That is to say, go prepared. That means you know in the meditation, after 20-30 minutes time, the pain bound to happen. When it happens, naturally you go with hateful feeling or discouraged feeling to get it off or wipe it off. So that is a kind of traditional reaction. So if you go prepared, one day you can see as and when the painful feeling happen, to see it in an objective way. How it comes, what is the way it gathering the momentum, and after a certain amount of grossness only, it come and click our mind. But what is the phases, what are the episodes of the pain when it is developing, before it come and knock on our doors? It's just slowly developing. And we fail to see it because we have a natural hatred to the painful feeling. So the day you go prepared, you can see it is a very subtle, painful feeling. Due to the negligence, slowly it come up to a certain level. When it come up above the surface, we all of a sudden lose our primary object and met with this painful feeling, and by that time our hatred is already developed, therefore there's a fight, there's a reaction, there's a subject. So instead, if you observe it in the experimental way, you have to have a choiceless awareness towards the painful feeling, or evenly suspended attention towards the painful feeling. Then only you can trace backward and see how a subtle, a tiny painful feeling slowly come up to a maturity and above the surface, and then onward threatening your primary object, and there you start wrestling, and there you are the loser, because you already developed the undermining tendency of the hatred, and therefore whenever you are noting the pain, it must be a double-fold noting. Noting the pain itself and noting the undermining tendency, underlying tendency of hatred also. So that is why you need a specialized kind of mindfulness than the materiality. Materiality, you have single one thing to know. In-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, that's all. But in the pain, you have to have double-fold noting. If it is a painful one, painful feeling, naturally is backed up by this underlying currency of hatred. If the pleasurable one, you have to, your noting must be double-fold to feel the pleasurable feeling and the pleasurable feeling, and the underlining or undermining or undercurrent of the desire. When that happens, you see, you can go to very deep layers of your consciousness. So therefore, once you become mastered in the materiality or corporeality or kayanupassana, the Vedananupassana demands high level of concentration, high level of mindfulness, and it is very dramatic, and it is very challenging, and it is electric. The moment you understand, you become, I would say, attending to your age in your meditation. If you can't go beyond this kind of level, you will be ever a beginner's mind or beginning meditator. The day you successfully tackle the materiality and be prepared for the pleasurable feeling or painful feeling, and then note it as and when it is arising, as early as possible, then the Buddha says, the day you understand, day you see the beginning of the painful feeling or pleasurable feeling, you will be endowed to see the cessation of that very pleasurable feeling and the very painful feeling. Therefore your attention, your wise attention, your radical attention, always must be there to see the arising part of the pain, the arising part of the pleasure. So when and where the pain is recurrent, you must be invited. You must be prepared to see the arising part, the beginning of the pleasurable feeling, the beginning of the painful feeling. Therefore, you have to get rid of this premeditated idea, the pain is good, or pain is bad, or pain is good. That is what we call, you are going against the grain. Your liking and disliking has to get aside. Your personality traits has to get aside. Believe the instructions. When and where the pain or pleasure happen or feeling happen, you must be prepared to see the beginning of it. And when it comes to the middle, it recognizes it with, this is a pain, this is a pleasure. But in the early part, it's indiscriminate, very difficult to understand whether it is going to be a pleasurable one or painful one. And that is the secret that you have to do. The day you understand the beginning of the painful feeling, the endowment, the gift, the blessing you get it, you are bound to see the end of, or the cessation of the pain and the pleasure. When you are mastering this pain and pleasure, one day you will be naturally leading to a situation where you are not with the pain, not with the pleasure, but kind of a feelings are there that is qualified to say they are the feelings, neutral feeling, no pain, no pleasure feeling. But unless otherwise you get rid of your ignorance as an undercurrent, you never recognize it, you never understand the no pain, no pleasure situation as the middle path, the straight, the way out. Because we are so engrossed, so engaged with the pleasure-seeking game. So much so you are in the pleasure-seeking game, you are always end up with pain. Whole life you are going to explain in terms of the pain and the pleasure. The day you understand, the day you recognize the no pain, no pleasure, you will see during your whole time, even the pain and pleasure can't explain even 5% of your time. 95% of the time you are in the no pain, no pleasure situation, but you never recognize it. It appears like a boredom. It appears like a monotonous. It appears like you are cornered. You feel lonely. So you feel like reading a novel. You feel like going to a television show. You are feeling like going to a trip, or reading newspapers, listening to radio. Whatever may be, you agitate the golden opportunity of no pain, no pleasure situation. Because of your lack of recognition of the no pain, no pleasure situation, therefore the Buddha says, we are born privileged beings, being humans, we are full of no pain, no pleasure situation, but the underlying tendency of ignorance is covering all the things, and we are so engrossed in the pain and pleasure, but in reality it is a very little minority. Therefore, more and more you to understand no pain, no pleasure, you will understand the value of solitude. When you are in a socialite situation, when you are in a full of carnivals, when you are in a full of advertisements, it is boring. Agitations, titillations, startling. Never allow you to recognize no pain, no pleasure. Not only that, never allow to be in the no pain, no pleasure situation. So therefore, after you mastering this materiality, so to say, in-breath and out-breath, once it becomes very calm and quiet, and if you expose to this area, that means with respect to healing, often it is surrounded by no pain, no pleasure, but it appears like boredom. It appears like cornered. It appears like something unpleasant, something vulnerable, something threatening, something outcast. So therefore you tend to open your eyes. You feel like going and do something for some hobbies. So ultimately you are the very person denying the middle part with respect to the feelings. So therefore, more and more you practice, you will say, being a human itself is an endowment, it's a blessing, but our upbringing, our value system, our personality, always paralyzed. It is hedonic, always seeking pleasure. As far as you are seeking pleasure, you end up with pain. Because the pain and pleasure never give any middle path, any secret, any key. You have to understand the disadvantage, extremes. And that is why the very first utterance of the Buddha, after his enlightenment, he says, Dve me bhikkave anta pabbajitena nasevitabba yochayam kamesu kamasu kallikana yogo yochayam attakilmatana yogo. He says, O monks, there are two extremes that a meditator should avoid, that is to say, the self-indulgence or sense-indulgence, or self-mortification. In the sense of pleasure and the pain. But one has to understand we can't do away with that. But at the beginning what we do is, we slowly get rid of extremes. Extreme of the pleasure and extreme of the pain, slowly then we come to the medium kind of pain and pleasure and the subtle kind of pain and pleasure. And there you can understand, that you have to understand the underlying tendency of the desire and the hatred. And the day you can see the feelings, pain or pleasure, without the tincture of undermining tendency, the pain has the same quality like the pleasure. They are reciprocal each other, but with respect to that, as a third party, that is to say, no pain, no pleasure. Is that very no pain, no pleasure never become our favorite because of our ignorance. Sometimes the ignorance towards the suffering we entertain as the happiness, our hobby. So it is a very, in a way sarcastic, in a way it's very tricky. And therefore the Buddha says, by contemplating, by rationalizing, by thinking, you, Putujjana or the commoner, will never think that no pain, no pleasure is the pathway out. Therefore, you have to listen to the Buddha. You have to listen to the teaching of the Buddha and contemplate in the wise manner. That is called Yodiso Manasikara. Dve me bhikkhave pacchaya sammaditya upadaya khatame dve paratocha goso ajjata Yodiso Manasikara. For monks, someone to develop the correct view, there are two proximate causes. One thing is listening to an enlightened one. The second thing is good contemplation. The Yodiso Manasikara is usually translated as wise reflection, but my teacher went to Jnanananda, Katakurunde says it's a radical reflection. Even with the faith, you can have this. The way out of suffering is on the line with no pain, no pleasure. If you believe it, even you are not so much wisdom, you can have that radical reflection. And when and where you feel bored, when and where you feel monotonous, when and where you feel enough, in meditation of a junction, and that is the point, lack of desire and kind of tastelessness. It's a sign of Nibbana, or sign of the middle part, with respect to feelings. So, when and where you are to explore into that, and to understand under your very nose, you will see how many opportunities we had in our life, that we, due to our ignorance, we never seek the way out through this no pain, no pleasure situation. So therefore, in future, when you are meditating, when and where the materiality or breath body becomes subtle, you have to expect you are slowly reaching this no pain, no pleasure. Our rational mind, our divine mind, always interpret this as boredom. Interpret this as monotonous, pale, stale, tasteless. So enduring it, because that you have listened to good Dhamma, because you have a good contemplation, so therefore you are not going to reason it out according to your old-fashioned way. Instead you reason it out with the radical way, and then only you can understand. You can now sit for more than 1 hour. Whether it's a painful or pleasurable, you make it a point to understand there are different facets. With undermining tendency of the desire and the hatred, or without the undermining tendencies, then only you will understand how much of ignorance undermining our day, our time. our meditation, our interpretations. So therefore, you have to face it again and again, incessant manner, till that you come up to that point, and there you will understand the whole teaching you can known as Veda or Prativeda, that means feelings. Mastering feeling is Veda, or Vedana is called as Veda. It's a huge amount of knowledge. Before the Buddha, the old Hinduistic, all knowledge known as Veda. Triveda is 3 baskets of Veda. But in the teaching of the Buddha also, that once you master this materiality, you are slowly leading to this Veda, or understanding of the Vedana or feelings, and it needs huge amount of accommodation, huge amount of patience, huge amount of experience. And one crucial point, one remark I would like to make is, unless otherwise you master materiality, you will not healthily expose into this Vedana. So each day you have to start like a beginner. Just deal with your primary object, in-breath and out-breath. Maybe quickly you can go into the subtle level, but whatever may be, you must never forget to start from ABC. 1, 2, 3. Once it comes up to the subtlety, then you have to be prepared. Now it's a chance to be with, or deal with, or face-to-face with feeling, and there you have to have the higher grade mindfulness, or higher grade of concentration and radical reflection, not to carry it away by the face value, not to carry it away by the undermining tendencies, because undermining tendencies are playing hell in this sphere than the materiality. So therefore, for a progressive lady, progressive yogi, and the person who is looking forward, this is a good test. It's a very rewarding kind of a test. And here you can understand the moment you understand it, the moment you realize it, it's electrically going to give the results. So immediate, so electric when compared to the materiality. So therefore, more and more you understand, you will be dumbbound. How to talk this with the people, because people are so much possessed and obsessed with this feeling is me, this feeling is mine, and people, those who are having the pleasurable is what we call the rich people, the people, those who have no pleasurable feeling are called as the poor people. Therefore we must be rich because we want to have the pleasurable feeling for a long time. What a fallacy. And if you observe, the doctor and the patient, both are suffering at a similar rate. If you look at the rulers and the subject, they are equally suffering in a similar way. Parents and the children, teachers and the students, they are exactly the same. Society won't accept. Society would say the teachers are better off, parents are better off, rulers are better off, doctors are better off, but the patients are very poor and they are suffering. But if you go through this knowledge of the pain and pleasure, all of us are in the same boat. So you have to see through it. You have to see it in a radical way. And when you are looking, when you are observing, you will understand. Whether you understand this particular knowledge under the tutelage of Buddha, 2600 years in India, or now you understand it here in America, in Houston, exactly the same, no time difference, no space difference. Time and space is completely different dimension, but understanding is very electric. That is why the Buddha says this teaching is not restricted to any time, not restricted to any place, but you have to keep on practicing. While practicing, you will face more and more challenging thing, and more challenging thing going to give more and more electric kind of results, and more you understand that kind of electric kind of results, you find very difficult to communicate with people. It was 99.9999999 pleasure seeking. So if you go and say the pleasure seeking is a paralyzed thing, you have to go into the no pleasure, no pain. They will catch you and put into an asylum. Then you are mad. So please don't share with this kind of thing. But when you observe in the society with this kind of understanding, you may find few amount of people very successfully living in this on this earth. They are not going to advertise themselves, that they are not be carried away by the pleasure-seeking game, and they are the noble friends. You have to seek association. But these people are not advertising. So therefore you have to first experience under your very nose, and then observe the society, and there you can find who are the people. They have mastered their feelings, and they are living in the society, uncontaminated, and they are not going to propagate it, because they know they are not popular Dhamma. They are not the most demanded theories. But no one can deny it, because this is validated by the noble people. So therefore, once you master this materiality, I am not telling that for your whole life, I am telling for even a particular one sitting. Then you have to expect the feelings are going to happen. So therefore, even the meditative kind of gladness, rapture, pleasure, serenity happen, don't recognize themselves as me, mine and myself. It's an excruciating pain happens. Sometimes the bones are cracking like, and even then don't recognize them as me, mine and self. Whenever possible, try to put up with them. Associate with them as much as possible to see the beginning, and the middle and the end. When you are seeing through that kind of peaks, that kind of extremes, ultimately you will end up with a huge valley, no pain, no pleasure. When you come there, you will see this boredom, you will see this monotony, you will see the fearfulness, uncertainty and all the kind of thing. Please don't entertain doubts. Just let it be. And once you go, maybe 45 minutes and 1 hour sort of thing, and when once you get up, you will really see the effect of it even for few hours in our hectic multitask life. And even in the future, whenever you earn money or search for your food or your dwelling or your clothes, anything, you will never go for luxuries. You will understand it's utterly useless and costly. You will go for moderate level, and that is the way you have to adjust your requisites. Then you need not to work overtime. Because that you can be happy and contented with the moderate level, and then you get enough time, and basically you will cut off this kind of materialistic and consumerized luxury kind of friends. Because they will outcast you. They will not consider you as a social being. They will never consider as you are be the social level and you are backward and likewise. So it is a blessing. When I was in the university and still when I am continuing, I found my old friends are really cornering me, outcasting me, telling I am becoming unreliable. I am not going for luxuries. I am fighting for the moderate life, and it is the way I just slowly pushed into the noble friends. They are not advertising, but there's a kind of a magnetic connection, and there you have to go there and plug in. Ultimately you find it's not only changing your sitting hours, but your whole relationship with your food, relationship with your clothing, relationship with your dwellings, relationship with your medicine and the friends, behavior, the posture, everything will undergo once you have come up to this, and then you will understand what is the meaning of the dispensation of the Buddha. If it is no such a macro atmosphere, how the hell we can maintain this situation? So therefore we are blessed, we are endowed. There are some few people, of course minority, they understand it and they know whatever the advertisements are there, whatever the information technology, whatever the news going to assure you the luxuries and kind of thing, they understand what is to take and what is not to take. And thereafter, you will know what is the good Dhamma, or what is the good teaching, what is the bad teaching, and what is the way to make a decision regarding the requisites, and then you will learn about the least frictional path. When that happens, your consumerization, your pollution towards the society or the environment and mental pollution, everything will be slowly, just like we are the shedding off of the worn out skin in the reptiles, it slowly happens. But only single humble request I am making is, don't try to accelerate this. This has to happen in a very slow manner. This has to happen with the maturity of time. You may just meditate and understand it again and again, but the changing of your liking and disliking, your personality, this has its own rhythm. That is called Taoism or suchness. So you have to understand the harmony with the natural law, the suchness, and they are only the solace, only the way out is observing an association with the noble friends. They will not teach you, but they will show, they will live up to the moderate way of life. No luxuries, no bragging, no advertising. Just live and maximize your time for be with yourself and be mindful, develop as much as possible insight meditation and live the life. Don't live in dreams. So therefore the day you and the moment you understand the secret of these feelings, you become attaining your age in the meditation. I hope this talk, this theoretical part as well as the practical hints that I have tried to give will help you to organize your meditative life and understand the three kinds of feelings and to maximize the middle part. Okay. So now the time is 5:40. Either you can do little walking meditation and go for 6 to 7 sitting, or 1 to 8 sitting, whatever maybe as you like at the timings, the end of the day's program.